Behold, my glorious supporter EyePatchNotes has asked for a doozy, the invisible hand. We will discuss this concept today. Originally an economics concept from Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, the invisible hand is an interesting sort of philosophical idea that I have, yes, a specific thing to say about. So first, I'm going to read you the passage from Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations that explains, what it is. It's worded a little funny, so then I'll explain to you myself what it is, give you an example. We're going to take a brief interlude to talk about the anime that EyePatchNotes and I were exposed to this concept through. Might seem a bit random, but it will be less random when there's an anime that is basically just about this concept. Suffice to say that. And then I'm going to tell you the thing I have to say about this concept. You said, may I request a video on the concept of the invisible hand? Yeah, I mean, you certainly can. I really only have one thing to say about it that I think is worth sharing with you, but it's an interesting concept that can be applied to a lot of places. I'll read your full parlay just to give people some priming for what this passage will be about, and then we'll read it. The above excerpt is from Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, describing how originally selfish actions can benefit the group as a whole. While coined in an economic context, the broad principle can be applied to other fields. See Darwin's natural selection. That's a good example. Yes. So here we go. We'll read it. By preferring the support of domestic to that of foreign industry, he intends only his own security, and by directing that industry in such a manner as its produce may be of the greatest value, he intends only his own gain, and he is in this, as in many other cases, led by an invisible hand to promote an end which was no part of his intention, nor is it always the worse for the society that it was no part of it. By pursuing his own interest, he frequently promotes that of the society more effectually than when he really intends to promote it. So I'm going to break down that last sentence again. I think that will explain it most effectively. By pursuing your own interests, you could frequently promote the benefits of the society, the interests of the society, better than if you had actually intended to benefit the society. In other words, selfishness can be more selfless than being selfless. The result can be more selfless. Another way to put it, and there are many ways to put it, is that the utility of being selfish is higher frequently than the utility of being selfless, even though you wouldn't straightforwardly think that would be the case. I'll give you an example. Let's imagine that I am growing up in my life and trying to decide what to do with myself. And I think, the world is not a great place, and I have been fairly fortunate to live a pretty okay, stable life. It could have been worse. I am not impoverished. I am a healthy, able-bodied individual who, while I might not be full of money, I am not going to be immediately on the streets. Many of you listening are probably in this situation. You do need to earn money and everything, but there are certainly people worse off. It could be better for you, but it's not bad, And so I'm sure you, like me and many of us, have thought, well, maybe I should do charity work because other people are way worse off. Wouldn't it be really good for the world as a whole if I went and just helped people with my life? I could join the Peace Corps or work for a nonprofit. It would be good for me too. I'll be fine. I'll be provided for in some way by those things. It could pay for my livelihood to be part of an organization like that, or it could look good on my resume anyway, so I'll eventually get a job with it. But it will help people, which is important, right? I feel like I ought to do that, you might say to yourself. But then you think, though, another thing I want to do is run my own business. And if I run my own business, I might create things that are very valuable to people. In fact, they might be so valuable to people that I will gain influence and/or directly wealth. They're pretty much the same currently, so... and I could use that influence or literally wealth to also benefit those other people. I just wouldn't be personally delivering the benefit. I would be instigating the benefit using my wealth or power. Which one should I do? Right? And the invisible hand says you should do the selfish one. You should do the one that is, you just pursue your own goals. And that will cause you to create more utility, that is benefit for the society overall, yourself included, than if you try to do something selfless, if you go join the Peace Corps or whatever. Now, keeping in mind This doesn't mean that it's never good to do selfless things. This claim is not saying that it's like bad to be nice to people and you should just be selfish. It's just pointing out that you would think that selfish actions would be selfish. You know, like when you do something for yourself, it's mostly benefiting you. But in fact, if you do out the math with the utility to everybody else, a lot of the time, other people are actually also benefiting more than if you were selfless, which is unintuitive, right? Now, obviously, whenever we talk about any concept like this, we're 5 minutes into the video. This is arguable, you know? Like when we say, by preferring the support of domestic to that of the foreign industry, he intends only his own security, and by directing that industry in such a manner as his produce may be of the greatest value, he intends only his own gain. He is in this and many other cases led by an invisible hand to promote an end which is no part of his intention. Yeah, that's pretty arguable about our current society. I wouldn't straightforwardly say that I agree with that concept as it applies to, like, literally right now human society in a lot of places. But as a philosophical construct, the idea that selfishness can have greater utility than selflessness is interesting and noteworthy and does apply in many cases. It is plain to see that for a lot of people, they just are going to benefit the world more if they do like this thing rather than that thing. And it kind of doesn't really matter which one is selfish or selfless. That is how I would encourage you to think about it. It's more like whether something is selfish or not can kind of cloud your judgment about whether something is beneficial to people overall. You should do the thing, what I'm going to go on to suggest, is you should do the thing that benefits everyone, yourself included, the most. You should do the thing that you're the best at. If there's something you're good at, do that. We don't need people doing things they're not good at. If you're good at something, go do it. If you are all about helping and working with other people, building prefabricated houses, working outside, and traveling to places to help people in need, you should join the Peace Corps and help people, you know? I'm not saying that that's wrong because it's selfless, nor is this invisible hand concept saying that. You may be uniquely suited to that. In a way, you could say that is you being selfish. What I'm going to say is that that's your best path forward. You being, quote, selfish should mean you're just doing whatever is you're best suited to, you know? That will make you the most happy, and it will also make everybody else the most happy. Even if you or everybody else doesn't think it will make them the most happy, they're wrong. It usually will. Now, obviously, again, it's not trying to say that that's always true. If what makes you the most happy is murdering people, please be selfless and don't do that. Like, clearly, you know, but as a general principle, I do think it's true that a lot of people are led astray by their desire to do abstract good, but in practice, it's not really of much value compared to what they could be doing, which would be of very indirect but very palpable value to other people in a greater way. Brief interlude now to talk about where the hell this concept came from for EyePatchNotes and I anyway. If you took an economics class in college, this is probably where it came from for you. Or I don't know, maybe a literature class. I was an English major and I didn't read this book in college or any other time. I did not know where this passage was from before this, but I knew of it, and the reason I knew of it was because I watched C, The Money and Soul of Possibility Control. From now on, I'm just going to call that anime C because I think the title is an atrocity. However, at the time, these long titles were quite popular in anime. So what are you going to do? History. What is this show? EyePatchNotes writes, "This anime was a pillar of my formative years and still informs my interests and biases today. It can be described as Pokemon with credit cards, or JoJo with lightsabers made of money. A thoughtful piece that will always be a cherished memory." Little insider confession here. I've done 4 takes of this parlay. It's been harder than most because it's a complicated topic about which I have a lot to say. And I laugh every single time. I always think, should I laugh? Doesn't that sound kind of fake? But I naturally laugh every single time I read JoJo with lightsabers made of money. That's literally what the show's about. If you know what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is, and I say there's a show that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but with lightsabers made of money, and you don't watch it, like, we're done here. I have nothing else to say to you. Like, go watch it. It's cool. It's got a good soundtrack. It's short. It's very to the point. There's a lot of action. The animation style is really weird. The message of the show is super weird. It's really weird, but you should totally go watch it. It's cool. It's very strange. It's an anime about the invisible hand, basically. Imagine a world in which people fight with stands and lightsabers made of money to use their selfish desire to gain wealth and power to ultimately benefit their society. That's what it is. Go watch it. Anyway, cool. I loved that show too. That was where I originally knew about this concept. It's rad. Moving on to what I actually have to say about it. Wow, a whole 10.5 minutes into the video. I will now begin answering the question. I mean, we wanted to discuss it, of course. And actually, at the end here, because we talked about it so much along the way, hopefully I've effectively explained what this thing is, what our this gigantic thing above me is. And so we don't have to explain this at too much length. Where this interests me personally is that I kind of think it's a key to having a good society as a whole. I don't want to apply it to just economics. I sort of want to apply it to human life overall. I think that this is a way for us to move forward as a people, as a conscious species in the future. Let me paint a scenario for you. I, many times, have thought to myself, there sure are a lot of nuclear weapons in the world. I wonder if some country will set theirs off someday. And mayhap we will not have some kind of defense system like orbital space lasers to shoot down the nukes, nor would that necessarily make them not explode. So maybe the world will descend into a nuclear apocalypse, and maybe I'll survive. And maybe other people will survive. Probably. Some people will survive. And maybe it will be me and other people that I am capable of influencing in some way. Which means that we will probably need to establish a society. This is not likely, but it is far from impossible in our current state of affairs. So wouldn't it be a bit of a shame if when all of that happens, I don't have, a good idea for what the society should be like? I think we can agree that overall, our current societies are not that great. Hey, they're not completely useless. They have lots of benefits, and it would be hubristic to not acknowledge those. We have roads that work. There's some public transportation. Depending on your country, it might be really good. When I visit England, I'm from the United States, I'm moderately impressed by public transportation. It's pretty convenient to be able to just get on a train, and basically anywhere you would actually want to go, you can just go. It's not very expensive. It doesn't take that long. It's comparatively comfortable, clean, and quiet. It's pretty solid overall. The roads in the United States are mostly bad, but they're safe to drive on. You can use them, and they go everywhere. They go heckin' all over the place. One nice thing about the United States is that when you drive along the highways, there are generally just these regular little rest stops. You could just pull off on the side of the road from time to time, and there will be a park or a restroom, sometimes gas stations and places to eat. And just right there, you just turn off the highway, you're done, you park. And I didn't realize, but a lot of other countries don't have that, and they're quite nice. It's a very nice thing that we have because of our society. Just obviously there are other benefits, but even to say, our American society is not great. Yeah, it's not horrible though, a lot of it is, but we have some healthcare. Not very good healthcare, but we don't have literally none, if you get hit by a car in the street and you have no healthcare, most of the time you will get treated and not die. That's not great because of how it happens, but it's not the worst that could be. We could just leave you to die, It would be wrong not to acknowledge those benefits. Where I'm going with all of this, of course, is that the invisible hand may be an explanation of how to build a society that is better. We're not asking for perfection, and our current society is not of no value, so we don't want to lose that. But can we do better? And I think we can. I think that an invisible hand-based society is better. If you had to say, I would say that our current society in the United States anyway is capitalism. You could argue lots of things. Let's not. I mean, go ahead, but I'm not going to. It's a capitalist society. So for the remainder of this video, I'm going to use the term capitalism or capitalist society to refer to like this one, or, in general, these ones that exist at the moment, and an invisible hand society as what I am proposing. So it's going to be related to capitalism in some ways, but it's an invisible hand society. How does it work? Well, the state of affairs that I see making the most sense, and this could happen without a nuclear apocalypse, so that's nice, is that at the moment, we're at a level on the tech tree where we have enough technology to automate a lot of production. We can get a certain amount of food and water and goods without anybody theoretically needing to pay for them. At the moment, we do still pay for them because sometimes people are paying for them, but theoretically, it could be possible to generate quite a bit, who knows how much, without much human interaction. Nobody would really need to pay or get paid, and things would just happen on a certain level. It wouldn't probably be enough to maintain our whole society because our current whole capitalistic society is not built around that because it's capitalism. So just imagine for a second that that's not in the way of that happening, and through some convoluted means, our society ends up in a place where we have enough technology to produce things for everyone. And then imagine, I don't know how this would happen besides a nuclear apocalypse, but let's just stop coming back to that, that we do produce enough for everyone without much human interaction. Now, obviously, there still needs to be some, don't worry about that for now, that's not really the point. That's a fine detail. We're not literally designing an entire society in this video. We're just painting a picture. What would happen is that we would basically be in a situation where your work isn't worth much money, but it doesn't have to be worth much money, because you can be given the things that you need to stay alive and live a comfortable life basically for free. Not literally for free, like it has to be done by something, but the things that do it can do it pretty much automatically. It doesn't have to cost someone something to make a thing. Now, you could argue that we're currently in a state like that now, and capitalism is just keeping that from being the case. Again, I'm not going to argue that right now, but sure, some people would say that. Fair enough, whatever. I mean, I kind of agree with you for what it's worth, but who cares? It's, because capitalism, that's not how we live. If we were in a society like that, basically what's happened is that how much money your work makes doesn't really matter anymore. So what does still matter? Is there anything else that still matters? Will people still, like, what is everybody going to do, Let's imagine that everybody does the invisible hand philosophy. Everybody is going to be selfish and do whatever they want, and we're going to see what happens. That'll totally work, right? I think it legitimately will. I think that for a lot of people, they would just happily produce the thing that they're already producing, regardless of how much money it made or did not make them, regardless of how relevant money was or wasn't for their livelihood. I think that for most human beings at the moment, they have no way of knowing whether they are or are not that way, because they have not been and probably will not be given the opportunity to find out. Their life situation necessitates that their life revolves around money, and that's kind of true for me too. I've just been really pushing back. And so they'll never find out, like, if they didn't have to make money, would they still want to produce things? Like what? What would they want to make? They'll never know, and that's unfortunate and terrible. But we could live in a society where they would figure that out. We could live in a society where they have very little else to do but figure that out. Imagine that they don't have to earn a living to stay alive and exist, and they're just there, able to live their life. You would still probably have people go to school in some form of school. You'd want people to have information in some form at some level, simply because it helps them communicate as human beings. Not all education is just for, or I guess I should say, education's only purpose is not like to get a job. There are other reasons we have education, like it's kind of a daycare in some forms, basic human understanding that your parents would have to teach you, but it can be more efficient to have someone whose job it is to teach a bunch of people, stuff like that, right? And man, there are a lot of implications, but just as a few examples, right? So in this society, your goal is to figure out what it is that you want to do. That's it. That's the only thing you're supposed to do. And you can pretty much do it no matter what it is. I mean, you can't like go murder people, but if we have virtual reality, you sort of can. Like you could be in your virtual reality thing and just go kill people. I guess that's horrible. Please don't do that. But I guess if we have virtual reality, it's no skin off my back. Yeah, And so what I'm suggesting is that I think, personal worldview thing, we're 20 minutes into the video. Wow, the lighting really changed. I just looked at the camera. Like, it started, there's a rainstorm outside while I've been recording, and it totally changed. Whoa, that's so cool. Okay, we got to keep this take now because that cool thing happened. Wow, this is foreshadowing about my ideology. I'm like, we should make a society where you don't have to earn money. And this guy's like, no, you idiot. You just created a prophecy that will be fulfilled in 50 years where we descend into a dystopia. Like, no, please, I'm sorry. It's just the discussion. Anyway, yes, I think that if we were in the situation I'm describing, which as I've established, it's possible, now maybe not likely, but possible that we will be in at some point in the future. I think that if everybody just does what they want to do, you would be surprised. Mostly things will just work out. Like, I think mostly things will just work out. I want to point out that we're not that far from that situation in the first place. After all, this idea is originally a tenet of capitalism to some degree. We do live currently, most of us, in a society where you do mostly choose what you want to do. No one is forcing you to be a doctor or a lawyer or what are some other difficult jobs? Anyway, those jobs are very challenging. They require a lot of sacrifice on your part as an individual to do, but people still do them. And not just people whose family has done them or something. Like, people choose to do them just because they would like to do them. Enough-ish people that we have, maybe not enough doctors if you want to say it that way, but we have lots, like it's not like nobody is a doctor. It's not like nobody is a vet. It's not like nobody is a lawyer, things like that. No, these are professions that people do. People choose often enough to do these things that we have them. And there isn't much incentive to do them besides making a lot of money. But I think that most of the people doing those professions are fully aware that they don't need to make that much money. They could do a different profession that would ask less of them and would increase their personal quality of life in some ways at least. And they would make plenty enough money. It's not, there are certainly people for whom that's why. Totally. But anyway, another little detail here, though, is that you can be mistaken about your selfishness. I would argue privately between you and I, hundreds of viewers that are watching this, that there are people who are, for example, a lawyer, and they defend people that are doing pretty scummy things, right? Lots of stereotypical lawyers like that. There are also lots of lawyers that are fantastic, but you understand, yeah? And those people are doing that clearly for the money. They're doing it for money. They're doing it because they want a lot of money. But they are mistaken that they want a lot of money. They think they want a lot of money, but they don't actually want a lot of money. And what I mean by that is that if they had enough time to think about their life and determine what would make them happy, they would correctly conclude that money will not give them those things. Or at the very least, more money won't give them that much more money. Won't give them those things. They could get an amount of money that would give them anything that would give them a meaningful value from having money by being a nice lawyer instead of a corrupt lawyer. And when they say that they don't care because they only care about money, they are ultimately wrong in a sort of objective, omniscient way about what would actually be benefiting them. They're mistaken that that benefits them. I would argue. It's arguable. I'm not dead convinced that's true. But my experience is that people who care a lot about that are not happy in the way that they seem to claim to be. They get a certain sense of security and superiority, but that's not happiness. That's some benefit. They feel good in some way, but happy is what we're referring to. And no, I don't think they are happy. It's arguable, but that's what I think. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that if people had enough time, that's what I said before, but we were just talking about a society in which I don't see how you don't have enough time. Like, I don't know what you need more time for. Like, you live in a society where you don't need to earn anything, and you can just do what you want to do. What more time do you need? You have literally your entire life unmitigated. As soon as you're ready to go, you finished your school, you're like 10 and you have your own formed ideas, off to the races with you. Go figure out what you want to do. Like, that's all you need to do. So what's the problem? Come on. I have enough faith in people. They could figure it out. And I think that if that happened, things would work out. Like, you would have enough people. I would certainly keep doing pretty much exactly the same thing that I'm doing. I guess I would like turn off ads and stuff, because why? There wouldn't be ads really. Maybe, but probably not. Anyway, yeah. But I would pretty much just continue doing what I'm doing. As a matter of fact, a lot of the systems that we currently have, like Parley here, would be the same even in a system where you don't have to pay money. Or what I mean is that, like, currently not everybody can go get Parley, but everybody can watch it for free. Even, like, that's partially because I need to make money, and it takes me time to make these, so I have to be paid something if I'm going to make these, right? But it also serves a purpose where if everyone asked for Parley, like, I wouldn't be able to make them all, It also serves as a weird kind of, just that's how it ended up happening, but decision-making method for, like, which ones am I going to make, At the moment, it's like, well, that's obvious. You can only make the ones that support you. So there you go. But if I didn't need the money, you know what I mean? Or, like, I can't even charge you the money, then how do I decide who gets one? You know what I mean? Like, by lottery? I guess I could have everybody ask and then I pick the questions I like, but part of the joy of Parley in its current form is that I don't always do ones that I would, like, straightforwardly like. Sometimes someone asks me something that, like, I don't, like, want to answer per se, but I don't mind. I didn't want to read My Immortal for Liliana, but that's a pretty fun Parley, and, like, I had fun making it. Like, I didn't have a bad time making the Parley, but I wouldn't have chosen that question, like, just because why, and currently the fact that it does cost money kind of causes that to happen. So yeah, I hope that I explained this well enough that you understand what I mean. The idea is that I think a society where people pursue their own goals as much as possible actually would result in a society that is full of people doing things that we want, or for the people that this is the end of the video, so we're getting a little bit more hard-handed here. It will result in people that don't have anything valuable to provide to just not provide anything. To be blunt, I think a lot of the time, if people aren't good at benefiting other people and they try, it can be worse than if they didn't sometimes. And if we simply didn't need those benefits and those people could simply not feel burdened to benefit anybody else, they could just do their own thing, then that's fine, right? Can just have everybody who's good at something can do it. And if people aren't good at something, they just don't do it. Which has problems, don't get me wrong. I hear all the psychologists in the audience thinking, that sounds pretty toxic for people's mental state. Yeah, potentially. It's not like there wouldn't still be troubles, though. I mean, at the moment, I think the issues in most people's lives are social in nature. A lot of them. Not most people in the world's lives. I mean, most people that are watching this video. More of your problems are related to something social than to some sort of like law of nature or societal restriction. You have the internet, so you can't be that bad off. I'm not to assume, but just to say that you must be fairly okay in your life, and then the remaining issues are communication or personality or personal growth or happiness. There are issues like that, and those are things that are still a challenge no matter what. Being able to do whatever you want doesn't mean that those things are just easy to resolve. They're not. Think back to your summers as a child. Didn't exactly solve the riddle of life during those periods of time, did you? Like, no offense, neither did I. It was a right waste of time. Like, I mean, I had fun, but it was not the greatest for me actually. But anyway, so anyway, you get the point I'm trying to say. I don't think it's perfect or anything. I just think that a lot of the problems that come up in our current society are a result of people who, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this, people who don't have something that they're uniquely valuably able to do, being nevertheless required to do something, even if the thing is not really valuable. So for example, when we, in California, there is this company called Casita, which is I believe that's a term for, that's like what they call ma and pa corner stores in California. But Casita is this company, and they make this thing it's like a case, like a glass case. It's full of cameras and sensors, and it's got like corner store products in it, like some chips or some bread or whatever. And how it works is you can swipe in with the app and then just take what you want and leave, and it automatically detects what you took and bills you. So it's an automated corner store, or you could say it's a very high-tech vending machine if you want to think of it that way. A similar thing is there are those Amazon stores that are just like full of cameras, and you just go in with your app and you take whatever and then you just go, and the sensors just detect what you took and bill you. So you don't need to worry about it doesn't need to be any staff. The problem, of course, you can see where this is going, is that there are people whose job it is to run corner stores. So if that product is widely distributed, that means that their work isn't worth money that's an oversimplification, and we'll get to that, but you understand. It means that they could be put out of business. Our society would be saying, in a manner of speaking, that their work is not worth money, right? Or possibly they will endure well enough because people will value having there be a person serving them their sandwich enough that they won't use the casitas all the time, the automated ones, and they'll instead go to the casita, the ma and pa one, sometimes as well, and they'll coexist, possibly or possibly not. Not sure. But it's wrong to say, I think it's wrong to say, oh, well, we should make sure that they can keep operating their ma and pa corner store. Well, hold on. If it's not worth money to anyone, and we live in a society full of money, that's a problem. You can't just say, oh, but work that isn't worth money should be worth money. No, but those people shouldn't be out of a job either. The solution is that we shouldn't need things to be worth money. That's the solution. And of course, we live in a capitalistic society, so generally people don't say that, but that's obviously the solution. Like, just make it so they can do that thing without needing to earn money for doing that thing, and then everything works out. We don't have to hold back technological advances, or, this is a little harsh, but understand there's no hate in this when I say it, pretend that things that are not worth money are, but we can still get the value, the undeniable value, of having people to interact with when we want a sandwich made by a person. I think it will be a very long while before we're in a societal state where machines can make if you've had one of my sandwiches, a sandwich made by a human being can be a lot better than a sandwich made by a robot. And that will be true for a long time. I don't think it's bad that exists, but trying to force that to be financially viable is where we're running into trouble. We should instead eliminate the need for financial viability altogether, and then the problem would be resolved. And if that's the thing those people really want to do, then they can continue doing that. And it's also possible that although those people don't want to be out of that job, they may not actually want to work that job. And if they were freed from the burden of needing to do something that was like worth something to society or whatever, then they could do something else, which they would prefer more. And the corollary here, of course, is that for most people, the thing they like the most is the thing they're the best at. People are the most good at things that they are the most excited to do. Generally, I think there are exceptions. We all have our own little pet thing that we like, that is a hobby that we know we're not good at, but we just like it. Or we're not great at, but we like it. Like, I'm not half bad at Smash Ultimate, but I'm not noteworthy at it. You know, like there's no point in me doing it for a living or something. It's just not a natural skill of mine or enough of an artificial or nurtured or learned passion for me to be worth much doing that. It doesn't mean I can't just go do it, you know, and it would be nice if I could go do it without worrying about the fact that it's not worth money for me to like play Smash Ultimate. I don't know. I could just do, I mean, of course, occasionally I do just do that, but you know what I mean? Like all the time. And I don't want to play Smash Ultimate all the time, but without worrying about that, you get the point. I think that I've explained this enough, probably to death for some people, that you get the point. That is what I have to say about the invisible hand. I feel like there is a way in which it can be the key to making a society of people that are happy and still produce pretty much every valuable thing they produced before. I think there are many cases, for example, where people would still be willing to be doctors, like to some extent. I think some basic medical care could be automated with our robots that this society requires, but you know, surgeons, for example, we may need actual surgeons, and I think that there would be people willing to do that. I don't know if it would be enough that it would work out, but I do think that a lot of the people doing these types of jobs that are quite challenging and they require a great sacrifice in quality of life, they just take a lot of your time and energy in a way that other jobs don't. It seems to me like a lot of the people currently doing those jobs, they just can't possibly be doing it for money. Like, it isn't efficient to be doing it. I mean, either that or they're very wrong to be doing it for money, because it isn't worth it. And it's worth it if you want to do it, you know? And I would be interested to see if that would happen. So anyway, I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to say this is the way it should all be. I'm not trying to tell you that if I had all the power in the universe right now, I would just... the world will be like that. Like, no, I would back way up and probably spend like 10 days talking about this topic and then eventually decide, yeah, that's risky. Let's not do that. We can make some kind of, I don't know what society we would make. But anyway, that's another video. EyePatchNotes, thank you for this question. It was a lot of fun to talk about, and I hope that I answered it in a way that is satisfying. I also hope that I explained it in a way that is clear. I had a lot of difficulty figuring out what order things needed to be explained in, because to me, when I heard this concept, I had kind of always thought this way, and so it's a little bit difficult for me to go back to thinking, like, what about before I thought that way, or was there a before I thought that way? You know, what if you don't think that's true? What do you need to be told to understand where I'm coming from when I say, like, what if this thing? You know, this, that, and the other thing, maybe. So anyway, tell me how I did. See you next time.